You know about the giant. You know about the beanstalk. You know about Jack. But trust me, you don't know Jack about the beans. Odds are you've read the story of Jack and the Beanstalk, or maybe you've seen Jim Henson's made-for-TV special, which was criminally lacking in Muppets if you ask me. Perhaps you've seen the 2009 film, which really underperformed when you look at the cast list, which included Christopher Lloyd, Katie Seagal, Chloe Grace Moretz, Wallace Shawn, Chevy Chase, Gilbert Gottfried, and the great James Earl Jones. Yet somehow this thing lands a 4.6 on IMDb and a 32% popcorn meter on Rotten Tomatoes. Well, that's why I'm here. You see, it wasn't entirely their fault. The story of Jack and the Beanstalk predates these movies by some 4,000 years. That's a long time. Long enough that some important details have been lost from the original tale. The greatest omission? The story of the man who gave Jack the beans. Our story begins well before Jack was scurrying beanstalks, before he was pestering giants' wives for snacks, before he was making his getaway with a bag of coins, golden egg-laying geese, or a blabbermouth harp. In fact, this tale starts before Jack was even born. Let us begin with Jack's mother. Her name was Amelia, and she had blue eyes like the deepest ocean. Her hair was blonde, almost golden. Her smile made the strongest man's knees buckle. Her teeth were nearly white, which was quite good when you consider that this was before modern toothpaste, and they used a goo formulated from tree bark and snails. Suffice it to say, Amelia was a looker. And it's a good thing too, because she wasn't exactly overflowing with other natural talents. In terms of brains, she wasn't a rocket scientist. Lucky for her, rockets hadn't been invented yet. Science itself was still a few years away from really taking off, to be honest. Most women could bake bread or manage dirt in the garden. Amelia's bread tasted like dirt, and her garden did too. Still, Amelia, because of her beauty, was a popular girl with the young men in the tiny village. There were two boys in particular who sought her attention. The first was a strapping lad with muscles and confidence. His name was Reginald. He was the kind of guy who could walk straight up to a girl and with a flex of the bicep have her at his side. The second boy was named Arthur. Shy and thin, withdrawn and a little awkward, Arthur fell for Amelia at a young age, but as you might have imagined, could not summon the nerve to proclaim his feelings. Reginald, on the other hand, had many lady suitors and appreciated Amelia for her looks. Arthur was a little different. While he certainly recognized the unique elegance possessed by the girl, he was more fond of her innocence and kindness. He saw something special inside her, while Reginald only saw the exterior. The time came when Arthur finally summoned the composure to share his feelings with Amelia, to proclaim his love, even if he did risk humiliation upon rejection. Practicing and rehearsing his words a dozen times, he made the stroll to her little cottage. As he approached the home, he was surprised to find that a celebration had commenced. What was the cause of the festivity? The source of the jubilee? Arthur soon realized the answer. It was an engagement party. He was too late. Reginald had proposed marriage, and Amelia accepted, completely unaware of the devotion felt by the other, more shy and more tender young man. It was with a devastated and heavy heart that Arthur left the village on his 18th birthday, the day before Amelia was to be married. He could not face the scene and decided to make a new life for himself somewhere far away. Arthur walked and walked, crossing rivers and mountains, passing village after village. He needed to get away. He needed distance. It was this resolve that drove him to a land few dare venture, a land of things that bordered on magic. Arthur, timid as he was, soon learned that he had a skill for trading and bartering. His shyness faded over time, and he became one of the most successful merchants in the region. His wealth and notoriety did bring him the attention of young ladies, but he never found anyone who matched Amelia. Years passed. Arthur amassed an impressive collection of rare and powerful items. Being kind-hearted as he was, he opted to leave the realm and travel the countryside, trading and sharing his magical merchandise with those whom he deemed worthy. Some 12 years had passed when Arthur, without really planning it, strode back into the village of his birth with his horse and wagon. As he paced the streets, he saw that little had changed. The sole trading post was untouched. The huts and cottages looked as though they'd been in a time capsule. He set up shop, deciding that he would stay a day, nothing more. He'd make a trade, possibly two, and then be on his way. It was on a warm morning that he saw her. Amelia. Beautiful, graceful. Equal to the town, she had not changed a bit. Arthur, a changed and now confident and successful man, found that his shyness returned with vengeance upon seeing her. He ducked low and hid himself in the shop, concealing his visit from his former love. Amelia passed by without notice. But she was not alone. There was a young boy at her side. "Come along, Jack," Arthur heard her say. Amelia was a mother. She and Reginald had borne a son. The boy followed closely and caught his mother with strict obedience. A good son at that. Truly this Reginald had it all. A shadow of jealousy sprouted in Arthur's mind, but only for a moment, for his heart was pure. Later that evening, Arthur scolded himself for allowing such cowardice. He should have greeted Amelia. He knew it. She had been a friend, if nothing else. But still he could not convince himself to address the confrontation. It was then, as he was lost in his own thoughts, that he heard a youthful voice. "Sir, sir, are you still open for business?" Arthur glanced down in surprise and saw the young boy. Yes, the same boy who had walked with Amelia earlier. "Ah, yes, yes, surely, my young boy. What is it that you seek?" "Well, sir, I have this cow to offer. My mother sent me to trade for food." The boy held a tattered rope that was loosely tied around the neck of an old animal. Arthur curled his lip, considering the situation. He rounded the counter and stepped outside to inspect the offered cow. A question rose in Arthur's mind. Why send the boy to make the trade? Why would Reginald not prefer to make the transaction himself? Strange. "What is your name, son?" Arthur prodded, already knowing the answer. "My name is Jack." Arthur nodded. "This cow is past its prime, Jack. You know it's not worth much, don't you?" A look of embarrassment swept the boy's face. "I know, sir, but this is the last one we've got. It's the last anything we've got." Arthur turned his inspecting eye from the cow to Jack. Yes, he saw it now. The boy was thin. Clearly he had not been getting enough to eat. Arthur rubbed his chin. Thoughts of Amelia and Reginald struggling to provide passed through his mind. The man of the house was failing, surely. But, caring as he was, Arthur took little time to make his decision. He would help the family. Tell you what, Jack," Arthur began. "I will make you a trade, one as fair as any you'll find. That's a promise. You give me that cow, and I will give you something more valuable than you could imagine." Arthur rummaged in an old trunk, searching and sifting. After a moment, he returned with a small leather pouch. "What is it, sir?" Jack wondered. Arthur smiled. "Here, have a look." He opened the pouch, revealing the contents. "Beans, sir?" Arthur shook his head. "Not just beans. Magic beans. Plant them tonight. Then come and see me, for I'll have more to tell you." Jack's eyes glittered at the prospect of magic. The deal was struck, and the boy ran toward his home. A day passed. Jack did not return. Arthur debated on whether to stay in the village or move along. On the second day, Arthur had all but decided to leave when the young boy came running. "Sir! Sir!" Arthur turned and saw the boy in a sprint. With a glowing smile, not unlike that of his mother, Jack said, "You won't believe what happened." Arthur grinned. "Let me guess. Something about a beanstalk and a giant?" Jack's eyes went wide. "Yes! You know about that?" Arthur shrugged. Jack, didn't I tell you it would be a deal beyond your imagination? I was hoping that you would visit me earlier so that I could explain a few things, but it appears that all is well now. Tell me, was your mother pleased with your trade? Jack wobbled his head. Well, not at first. She wasn't too pleased with me, but when I came home with the sack of coins, she was very happy indeed. Arthur chuckled. I'm sure she was. But I'll tell you this, Jack. If I'm correct, there is more to that giant's house than a sack of coins. Go back up and search for the goose. Trust me. And be careful. Jack nodded with excitement and was off. The next day, early in the morning, Jack returned with the news. He had done it. He had found the goose, and it did, as Arthur figured, lay golden eggs. Go back once more. Seek out the harp. But Jack, make sure it's asleep. The prompt confused Jack, but he agreed and was again off. The next morning Arthur anxiously awaited the boy's return. Morning came and went. No Jack. After a few hours, the tradesman decided that he should be on his way. He'd helped Amelia without having to confront her, and had already spent more time in the village than he'd planned. Arthur packed his things and readied his wagon. He did not need the cow and traded it for travel provisions. As he carried his pace along the path, he came to a tall hill. It was then that he heard a scream. In a panic, Arthur urged his horse along and rounded the top of the mound. There it was, a giant beanstalk, reaching toward the clouds. Next to it, in a tiny grove on a struggling plot, was a little house. Amelia's house. It had to be. And the scream? Where had it come from?
Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell a little scum.
Arthur glanced at the beanstalk, seeing a boy lowering himself at a frightful pace. Oh no! Arthur shouted, realizing what must be taking place. Racing toward the beanstalk, he sprang from the wagon. Jack was nearly to the bottom. Jump to me! Arthur commanded. Jack wasted no time, leaping and landing in the man's arms. He's after me! He's not far behind! Arthur looked up and saw the giant. And a giant he was, 40, maybe 50 feet tall, at the top of the beanstalk. What is going on? Came a worried voice. It was Amelia. She was coming up the opposite side of the hill with a bucket of water. What do we do? Jack cried in worry, ignoring his mother. Arthur knew he had to think quickly. He had brought this terrible thing upon them, and it would be up to him to solve it. Wait here, Arthur exclaimed, an idea forming. Racing to his wagon, he soon returned with a mighty and enchanted axe. Stand back, both of you! Then, with a potent swing, Arthur chopped into the beanstalk. 1 hit, 2, 3. That was all it took, the axe being enchanted, of course. Like a tall and heavy redwood, the beanstalk swayed, then toppled, finally crashing to the earth below, the giant along with it. A mighty boom was heard as the collision shook the ground. A commotion would be had amongst the villagers later, but for the moment, the three stood in shocked silence. Thank you, stranger, Amelia said. Arthur then turned to meet the woman he had loved for so many years. Thank you for saving my son. She was cut off as recognition set in. She knew his face. Arthur? She said in disbelief. Still shy, he nodded and explained that he was just glad he made it in time. Amelia blinked, trying to piece together all that had happened. Jack explained that it was Arthur who had given them the beans, which had led to the good fortune in finding the coins and the goose. I'm terribly sorry for any trouble I caused you and Jack and Reginald, Arthur said. Amelia suddenly scowled. Reginald? He left over 10 years ago. The bum! Left me and my little Jack all alone. She then glanced up at Arthur with her ocean blue eyes. I see your wagon is packed. Are you on your way out of town so soon? Arthur paused, contemplating the news. Reginald was gone. He then hesitated, but only for a moment. Arthur lifted his eyes to meet Amelia and finally answered, "Actually, no. I plan to stay for a while." Well, I think you can guess what happened next. And there it is, the rest of the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. I suppose only one question remains. If Hollywood were to film a new feature movie, who would you cast as Reginald and Arthur? Comment below. Maybe your wish will come true. Thanks for listening to this story from Griff's Library Reimagined. Comment below with stories you'd like Griff to take on in future Reimagined series. Please like and subscribe to help keep the stories coming. Also, check out the original audio stories and books in the Griff's Library collection. Dreams and Dragons just released on Amazon, and I've heard really good things. Griff hopes you enjoyed the story, and thanks you for listening.